For the past 2 to 3 years, getting a driving test has been very, very difficult. The main reason has been the COVID pandemic and the backlog that's been created by not being able to work and the examiners not being able to test. The problem is now that it's still continuing 2.5 years after the end of the last lockdown. Now, you could say that there is still a COVID backlog. There may be to some degree, but there's really a wider problem than that, because the COVID backlog should be becoming less of an issue. I'm not saying it's totally gone, but it should be becoming less of an issue. The biggest issue is, as a result, people have become desperate. People want to get a test yesterday. They know that if they book a test, it's going to be 5 to 6 months away in most areas. There might be improvement in some areas, but certainly not where I live. When I look on the booking system on a Monday morning, the tests are put on at the minute, it's like mid to late December, and they're very often gone within a couple of days, sometimes a day, sometimes even half a day. And really that should not still be happening. There should be some headway have been made with that by now. There's one or two problems actually. I mean, the booking system is being misused by either companies or bots that take every test for cancellation apps. And yes, I mean, there have been occasions where some of the people who I teach have had no other choice but to use them, because there's no other way of obtaining a test that they might need if they have to take a second test, other than resort to that, which I've never believed in. But what is still happening and what we still see on a daily basis is messages, phone calls that we get as instructors asking if we will take this person to test in another month, and people telling us that they only need 5 lessons before a test. You know, I've got it booked, I can drive. Yeah. To be honest though, they may be able to make a car move. You know, they might have a good standard of driving, they might not. And, you know, we're actually too busy to accommodate that kind of person. And also, we don't let anybody dictate to us as instructors how many hours they'll need. We know the standard, and we find it very, very annoying that people think they know the standard better than us. They don't. And if anybody does come to us with that kind of message, any decent instructor will say, no, we don't operate in that way. I certainly don't. And the reason that we don't is not to be spiteful. It is simply because we are accountable. We're accountable to the DVSA. We have to go through a rigorous testing process to qualify, and we also have to be tested periodically to re-qualify. And if we take people to test and we get too many fails, I mean, don't get me wrong, none of us have a 100% pass rate. People fail, and they fail for different reasons. They fail for various reasons. It's not just the standard of driving. You know, some people get very nervous, and that can also be a very, very big factor. But if we get too many passes, if our pass rate drops below 55%, then we will be looked at. If too many faults are incurred on test as an average over a rolling year, then that also gets looked at, and that flags up, and then we're then called for an earlier standards check. We have to have them every so often, but we'd be having them all the time if we gave in to people who are just so self-entitled. And that would also damage our reputation, and we would have to take these standards checks. We'd be under more pressure, and we could eventually lose our jobs, our livelihood. So having a good reputation within the industry with the DVSA is absolutely key to us as instructors. So that is the reason why we don't accept that kind of custom. We're grateful for good and reliable custom, people who want to go through the process properly, who will work with us as a partnership between instructor and pupil, and then the instructor makes the decision when that person is ready for the test. So a lot of people now are turning up in their own cars. Now some of it is down to people not being able to find an instructor, and some of them might be well trained by family members. They might actually get lucky on a route. There could be a lot of reasons why some people pass, but the majority won't. And that's simply for the reasons that I've outlined, because instructors know the standard. So please, if you're thinking that you can just book a test, try to find an instructor who will take you on. It may happen to some degree, but the majority of us won't accept it. And also, if you've got to realise that by doing that you are actually adding to the problem of longer waiting times. If the people who are selling you tests, I would advise anybody not to go for a short notice test that people are offering on, I don't know, the Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, for overly inflated prices, and then try and find an instructor, because another problem is people failing to turn up for the test. That's increased since the pandemic. So all these problems are being caused by this kind of thing. So what I'd advise anybody to do is just, even if it takes longer, wait for an instructor who can take you on. Learn to drive properly. Learn to drive properly, go through the process, let the instructor tell you when you're ready, and you're more likely to pass.